Hi everyone, Air here. Today I have Daniel Chidiac joining me, and he is a best-selling author out of Australia who's written books on wellness, personal growth, philosophy, and self-care categories. He's coached contestants with Dancing with the Stars, radio show hosts, DJs, TV presenters, and business people. And today he's going to work with me on what it means to be spiritual when it comes to being single, in a relationship, and even when you break up. So without further ado, let's start to open up our third eye and talk with Daniel.
Well, all the way in Australia. That's why we're in a completely different time zone, and it's probably very late for you over there. And here it's, I'm sort of just getting started. It's 11:30.
You seem
Probably
a little
should have
bit
started a long time
sleepy.
ago, but
Yeah.
me, no. Just woke up 20 minutes ago. No. I'm a writer. You know, writers stay up late, don't they? Isn't that the cliche thing?
I will
We
say,
stay up late and write, and we're hermits during the day.
I don't know. I'm going to have to disagree with you right off the bat. I wrote Model Stop Traffic in the morning, every single morning for like 2
Oh, really?
hours as soon as I woke up. But it was a lot about my dreams, so that might have been the difference there. So just
Yeah.
throwing it out there. But let's go ahead. I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about you, of course, right? So give us a little bit of your background and then especially highlight how you got to be this best-selling author with a modern breakup.
It's a long story, so I'm not sure how long the podcast's going to go for, but we might be here for a few days. So I started off at uni, and I was doing a commerce degree there, which is obviously very different to what I'm doing now. So I was majoring in accounting and finance, and I think I just did it because my parents wanted me to do it. It was something that, you know, when you finish, we call it year 12 here. I don't know what you call your final year of high school, but you like have to know what you want to do in your life. And there's so much pressure, and we're still kids. We don't really know what we want to do, but I did it, I think, you know, one, to make my parents happy, two, as well, because I thought it was safe and it was secure. It was a secure job. So started with that. And I remember I was at university one day, and I think it was like 6 months in to my first year. And there was a guy there, and he was talking about how he worked for a big accounting firm, which is PricewaterhouseCoopers. I think you guys have PwC as well. You would have branches there. It might even be an American company, actually. And he was just, you know, saying what the wage that he was on, and he was like in his 50s. And I remember just sitting there thinking that I just didn't want to be there. I was like, this is just not what I want from my life. And everyone was looking around and nodding their head and like, oh, it's so good, you know, such a good wage. And it might sound egotistic or whatever, but I remember just being like, I want to be making that a month, you know, like not a year or whatever it was. I was like, it just didn't fit right with me. It just didn't sit right. And it's not that money's everything. It was probably a lot deeper than that. But even that just didn't resonate with me. And I just wanted things. I just wanted bigger. And I literally just packed up my books and left. And it was crazy because I went home and I said to my parents, like, oh, you finished uni for the day? And I'm like, yeah, I finished. I've left. And they're like, oh, yeah, what time are you going back? Because I said to them, I've left. And then, I sort of had to have the sit down with them and let them know that I've left, and that wasn't easy. But my dad was more so, you know, he wanted me to get that piece of paper, and it's out of love as well, you know. They want us to finish it. They want us to have something. They want us to have a backup plan. But I think I was just always a bit more of a risk taker, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to everybody because it was definitely crazy of me at the time, but it was something that I needed to do for my soul. And even though I was young, I just went with it. I definitely wasn't very spiritually inclined then. Well, maybe I was without knowing it, but I wasn't consciously spiritual, like have a sense of spirituality, I guess, at that age. But I followed my gut still for some unknown reason. And like I said, it could have been stupidity, but whatever it was, it ended up working out in the end. But I had multiple jobs after that and had a clothing business that didn't do well, and I was in a lot of debt, and I had to literally dig holes. I worked on the train tracks, the rails here, so just to like literally pay off the debt. And yeah, I found myself at a time that was very hard, and just let go of so many expectations in my life, and just started to live a little bit more free and appreciate the moments. And I was just becoming awakened. And as I was becoming awakened and realizing the power of my thoughts and that I had control over my emotions, where I always thought it was something that I didn't have control over, I just started writing. And I was writing it all down and writing for about a year, and never thought that I would turn it into a book. And then, yeah, about a year later, it started.
It started. And then I believe you actually started a
Yeah.
business with your brother before. Is that what I read
Yeah,
correctly?
that was the clothing business.
So you've
Yeah,
always
that
had
was the
this
clothing business.
entrepreneurship bug in you, one way or another.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we went to Italy and we came across a brand that we really liked, and they didn't have a distributor for Australia. So we asked them, and we were crazy. We got a $70,000 loan out that was unsecured. So,
Mm.
like, I'm not sure if it's called something else in America, but we didn't put up any. We didn't actually put up any capital either, but we didn't put up any assets as
Mm.
protection. So we didn't have a house or anything. So they literally just gave it to us from a dodgy business plan, which is sounds crazy. I don't think they'd ever do that now. Um, so yeah, we just had this money and spent it. And look, we learned. We had a great experience, and things happen. They don't always go to plan, but as long as you learn and you progress, and you get through the hard times, I think there's always light at the end of the tunnel for sure.
Definitely. And then tell me, before we get into the fact that you wrote a breakup book, or a love book is what I would actually call it, how do you define your spirituality?
Uh, it's funny actually, and even though I said that word before, that word spiritual, I don't really class myself as being spiritual or religious or anything like that, um, because I think that at both of them sort of box you into something. I always describe it that I am who I am, and I am who I am at any given moment. I don't like to really box myself in or use that term, because I think the term spiritual has definitely been misused as well. It's like, people are like, oh, it's spiritual to go to a festival and ride yourself off for a week, which I've been to festivals and I love them.
Mhm.
But I mean, like, what is spirituality? Does it mean, is that spiritual? Like taking drugs and partying, and does that mean you're spiritual? And the man that's walking down the street in a suit, you're going to judge him, be like, oh, he's not spiritual. He doesn't have that. He's a businessman. Like, he might have a very strong sense of spirituality, but it's internal. I think this term spirituality, or whatever it is, or if you're religious, I think it's an internal um, relationship that you have with God, or with this energy. And again, whatever you want to call it, this energy that we feel is, number one, love, and that's the end
Mm.
of the story. Love is the greatest feeling, and it's universal love. And two, this energy that just feels like it gives us these messages constantly of what we should do with our life and the direction we should go. And if we can tune into that, I think that's the sense of spirituality, if you want to call it that. That's what I try to tap into. I try to tap into that source, that feeling, that eternal wisdom.
For someone that says that I'm not spiritual, you hit like all of the higher purpose tendencies just now. And you were like, I am who I am. That
Did
is
I?
one of the
Okay.
most spiritual things
Maybe
you
I
could
just,
say.
maybe I just don't think I label them. Yeah, maybe I do. I just don't feel like I label them or put a term on them. It's just what's going on inside of me. It's just observation from my experience, and just delving deeper into my life, into my thoughts.
And that's beautiful. That's how I would wish everybody would define their spirituality is you hint on a little bit of what I call intuition. The gut feeling is what you've been calling it, like knowing that okay, this is my life purpose, or that I'm meant for more, or that this is just temporary and a lesson that I'm going to be learning for something greater. This is when I'm coaching anybody for spirituality or growth mindset, what I'm hoping that they say. So you're already, 99% there. You don't even need coaching. You're good to go.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think we all need coaching. We all need coaching sometimes. Trust me. Don't be fooled by my words. It's we all yeah. I mean, I need it just as much as anyone else.
so how did you get from train tracks to knowing that you were meant for something more and knowing that you're learning these lessons to writing a book about love?
Well, that's a difficult question because there's so much that goes into it. I feel. But I started writing Who Says You Can't You Do. That was the book that was happening while I was on the rails. I hadn't released that yet. Um, so I was like in between it. And that was more of the expressive book of the awakening. And I feel like I went through some kind of enlightenment. So, and I needed to share it with the world. That was definitely my calling because I'd never picked up a pen before this all happened. Um, and the breakup book came years later. And I guess, like you said before, it's more about dating and I think love and just how we feel in the modern world and everything that's going on. And people constantly ask me, was it something that I went through? Was it a breakup that I went through? And yeah, of course, I've been through breakups, but I didn't start writing the book until 3 years after my previous breakup, my previous relationship. So it wasn't. There were definitely notes like you write. After you go through a breakup, you express yourself and you write things down. But I didn't start writing the book until 3 years later, and I think it was more just talking to so many people and being like, oh my God, this is like happening with everybody, this modern day sort of world thing. And the things that we feel that, even crazy thoughts that we have that I feel that people weren't really sharing in a book. Even in a movie, sometimes it's like the breakup part is sort of brushed over. And then it gets back to like, it's like, oh, we broke up and they're crying and they're sad. And then they get over it. And it's like, no. Like we're not focusing on really what happens when you feel like you've been taken advantage of by somebody, or whether it wasn't your choice and it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, even if it's a short burst relationship. And I think I didn't actually say the time of the relationship with Amelia, with her ex, but it was, I want to sort of give the impression that it maybe wasn't as long as like a 3 or 4 year relationship. It doesn't need to be like that. I feel like with the insecurities and everything that's going on in today's society, that and the desire to be appreciated and wanted, and even admired sometimes, I feel, because that's just the world we live in with social media, that the short ones get to us more, the ones that go unexplored, the ones that when we're feeling insecure we latch onto someone because of our own insecurities, and it's never them, it's always us. It's, if someone ever affects you that much in your life, it's always you, always, because no one should ever affect you that much that quickly. Okay, it's different obviously if you're getting abused and you're getting physically abused, and that's a different story. But if you're like latching onto someone when you first meet them and you don't even know them, that's all your insecurities. I mean, you don't even know them, how can you like them? It's to me, it's just a false sense of security that we're after.
So I definitely want to nitpick. Is that cool with you? So
Yeah,
when it comes to getting to know someone, you're like, yeah. And then I just
yeah,
saw you shrug your shoulders like, yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
You can't see me, but I can see you. So
yeah, yeah.
with that, how long do you think it takes to get to know somebody before you can actually say, hey, this isn't my
I don't,
insecurity, this is my feelings?
yeah, I'm not sure if there's actually a time on it, but I think it's got to do with the feeling that you get, but it's also the observation of who that person is. I think that's the most important thing. Um, so I don't really feel it's time. I think you need to, we always like, oh, we write down a list of what we want, and then we completely excuse that because we get this feeling for someone. But I think it's where is that feeling coming from? So I don't think it's about the time. It's you just have to be in a place where you feel secure enough to be able to make the right analysis of this person. And yeah, that might sound, like, oh, it's taking away the beauty of it. Like, do I have to analyze this situation? But I think it's more you've got to analyze and you've got to delve a bit deeper into the way you feel. And, why am I getting this feeling of somebody? Like, if I'm getting anxious, if it's a great feeling and you're like, this person seems like a really great person, then that's great. But it's like, if you start liking someone that you feel is not even giving you half of what you feel you deserve, like, do you actually really like them?
I'm gonna go
So,
with no.
yeah, to answer your question, I don't really think it's a time. Yeah, I don't think you do. You may, but I don't think you do yet. And I think that's the kicker, And it's like, is it just a feeling? Maybe it is, but how often has that worked out for you?
And I would say feelings go up and down, right? So how much can you trust at the end of the day how
Yeah,
you feel
yeah,
in the moment? So I want to
yeah,
have
exactly,
like a
exactly.
preface here. I am sure out of the literally 6,347 Amazon reviews that you've had people come to you about their relationships and ask you questions, whether they're single, in a relationship, or, going through a breakup. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, definitely. I think, but like, because obviously it's a fiction book, so there's characters in it, so it's not like it's something that's it's not a self-help book. But even though there's a lot of self-help in it,
Mm-hmm.
but they do, and I'm careful with what I say. I can only say what I'm not a counselor, and I don't want to be. All I know is that what I experience through my own like what I experience, and that's what I can give off to people. So I'm very careful to not give the wrong advice, but I can only say I only speak from my observations, and then if it helps them, great. If not, then so be it.
So be it. So I want to play a little bit of a game,
Yeah.
Dan. And in my game, I basically want it just to be about you and your experience, or it could be about your book and how you relate it to the book. That makes you feel more comfortable. So I'm always about pushing buttons. So you
Okay.
just let me know where my boundaries are.
All right. All right.
But
If
with
they,
that,
if they cross too much, I just won't answer them. I'll pass. If they're too crazy, I'll just pass. Is that okay?
of
Can I
course,
pass?
I'll just hear this dead silence on the audio and be like, okay, let's play music in that dead silence.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Go back as if you are Daniel the writer or Daniel the younger version. Looking back, right? As now you're older and
Okay.
wiser. I want to kind of see
Am I?
how your values. I sure hope so. Do you think you're older and wiser? You're definitely older.
Sometimes. I'm definitely older. Sometimes I'm not sure I'm wiser, but we'll see.
We'll see. I'm about to find out. I'm about to break it all down and we'll find out. And so,
Yeah.
okay. How, okay, just so I have a reference, you said that relationship that you based the book off of, that was 3 years ago? Or that was 3 years ago from when you wrote the book?
The last breakup. So I went through a breakup, and then 3 years later, I started writing the book.
Okay, so how long ago since the breakup of the book as of today?
The breakup of the book,
And so
or the breakup from my relationship. Oh, it's been about 8 years.
8 years? Is that what you said?
Yes,
8.
since the breakup, and then I started writing the book about 5 years ago.
So I really hope that
Yeah.
in the last 8 years you've become older and wiser. That's what I was
I
getting
hope
at.
so. I hope so. Look, I've seen people in between, and things just didn't work out. So, but I would say a relationship that they met my family and I met their family, and it was quite serious. Was about 8 years ago.
And then how old are you now, Daniel?
Do I have to say this?
You can just give me
I think it's somewhere. I think it's somewhere online. 35.
35. That's not bad.
The ripe young age of 35.
Come
Nah, that's
on.
thanks. That's not bad. It's like in 2 years it will be bad. In 2 years you will be bad. Yeah, now 35 is young.
No, I'll start making fun of you when you're like 55. How about that? Then I'll say,
All right.
You should
All right.
probably settle down then.
Isn't that still young? Yeah, maybe 55 we should settle down. But I think 55 is still young.
Of course.
55 is still young these days.
Yeah, even
My
Garrett.
grandfather lived to 93.
See, you have plenty of time to figure it out. Become older and wiser. You got
Yeah,
to 93.
that's it.
I think I told you earlier that I was doing acrobatics and to not make me laugh. You made me laugh this entire time. So calm down. With that, okay, go back to you are older, wiser, 35-year-old Daniel, right? And you are single.
Yep.
You are trying to establish your values, right? So 8 years ago, you would have been, in your early 20s. Your values probably changed dramatically between then and now. So pretending that, you're talking to 20, like, let's say 24-year-old Daniel, what should he be valuing at that point outside of relationships first?
What should he be valuing outside of relationships?
Yeah, because I think it starts with you, right? I think we can get on that.
Yeah. I think I was about like 26 or something, 27. I think that I don't think that it's a thing of valuing like things outside of a relationship. You can definitely value the relationship you're in, but I think it's not letting go of the values that you have. And you touched on something that said that I think that your values would have evolved or whatever it may be. I'm not sure that, like, I feel like my values have been the same, and I've sort of always known what I want in somebody, and those things never change. It was just that when I was younger, I was probably more likely to turn a blind eye to them and just go with the moment. So I think as I've gotten older, I'm less likely to turn a blind eye to things that really don't resonate with me. And I've had experiences since then that have taught me that as well. So now it's at a point where it's like, and it's tempting sometimes. It's hard, especially if you're very attracted to someone, or like whatever comes up, you have fun with someone, but deep down that this person probably isn't good for you and good for where you're going and good for your future. And it's not all about you. That's almost sounds selfish. It's about them as well, and you need to look at it from both angles. But if you know that something just isn't right with someone and the values aren't there and they're really important things, it's very subtle as well. So you've got to. That's why I said you've got to observe the situation, without ruining it, of course. But you've got to really look and say, "Well, I don't think this is for me." And I think that's what it is more than anything. So I think my values have stayed the same, and I think that we also need to keep focus on the things around our life that are really important to us and not lose all of that just because someone comes along. I think if that's the case, then they're probably not the right person for you, because the right person for you shouldn't take your focus so much off the other things that were important in your life. They should almost encourage that, unless you want something new. Like I know girls that have been very career driven, and then they've met someone and they've wanted to have a child, and they've wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. That's completely fine. There's other women that don't want that and they want to pursue their career while they have a child, and that's also fine. It's like whatever, it's okay to change and shift as long as it resonates with you deep down.
So listening to you, it sounds like one of your values, whether you're single or not single, is to maintain your independence.
I think independence is, we just don't want to get confused with that word either, because I don't think independence means that you can't depend on someone. I think that you should be able to depend on someone, especially the person that you're with. But I think that you need to have your own your own love of your own life as well, that your happiness and that your emotions shouldn't just be based on the emotions of someone else and the way someone else is treating you. If you're constantly feeling sad because the other person is in a bad mood, or everything that you are feeling or thinking has got to do with that other person, I think that's a little bit dangerous. And I don't feel that that's right either, because you're not being honorable to yourself, and you've got your life. So it's like, as much as I don't think it's about, independence doesn't mean not being dependent on somebody. You should be dependent on the people you're with. You want to depend on friends when you're going through something. Mm-hmm. What are they there for then? If you can't depend on people. We depend on the supermarket to have our fruit. so we can go and eat. Yes, we're dependent on so many things. So I think that's where it gets a little bit confused with this whole independence thing. But I think, yeah, like I said, independence, there should be definitely an element of it in your life where you still enjoy your own company regardless.
I'm an introvert at heart, so I'm good on that one. Like,
No, good, good.
I'll be fine there. So tell me something that would be a value of yours then. And while you are single, not quite ready to get into a serious relationship, but it's something that you try to keep throughout these like last 8 years.
Oh, I mean, I'm always open to whatever may happen with somebody. Um, I think one of my values is that whoever I'm with needs to be close with their family. I think that's something that's is pretty important to me. They need to understand family dynamics, and because that's just something that I've been brought up in. We've been close to our family, so yeah, I think that's one for me.
I love that
Or
actually.
they need to at least have a desire to, you know, um, have a close knit family, I guess.
And so if someone would say that family is like the friends you choose, or let's say somebody doesn't have a family, is it more about the relationship that they have with other people, like the caring and connection, or to actually have a biological family that's important?
Um, no, I don't think it's. I don't think I would rule someone out that isn't close with their biological family. But I think that they just need to understand the like family values. That's what it is. And if they're not close with their biological family, and that's hindered that, and that's like, affected the fact that, sometimes we need to go to a nephew's birthday is a 4-year-old birthday, and we're going to have a big party and stay there, and like they can't understand that, and they don't want to really engage in that. Well, that's something that doesn't resonate with me, because when I'm traveling, if I'm home and that's happening, we got to go to that, because that's what I do in my family. That's what we do. We're close. We get together. So if they don't resonate with that, and they can't be bothered doing that, and that exhausts too much of their energy, then that's cool. But that's just not for me.
So now that we're crossing out of single into the potential relationship, because you kind of went there without me, but that was perfectly fine. So
Yeah.
definitely being close to your family is very important. Um, as far as any spiritual or religion, if you have a different religion than somebody, or if you define spirituality, because you don't even want to define spirituality as of earlier, you're like, that's not my word. Like, how do you navigate the different belief systems that someone might have? Like, is there any leeway, or
Um,
do you think you just make your list
I
and
think
stick to
it's
it?
no. There's definitely leeway. I think it's just having a universal love is more important than anything else. Like, someone can claim to be religious and not have a good heart. So I think, you pick up on these things, and you see when someone's got a nice heart, and someone's, they've been able to connect with that, and um, they're genuine. You feel that. So I guess it's comes more of a feeling from me, and you got to be in tune with yourself. So it's very hard to articulate and pinpoint and answer that question, I guess, because it's a feeling that you get when you're with someone, and it's the behaviors that you see. I mean, even without trying to analyze the situation in any kind of way, you just know when something isn't right. When you know when someone's being like really selfish, or not very appreciative, and things like that. You can feel it.
How do you handle situations whenever you're like, the vibe is wrong or the feeling is wrong?
Yeah. I haven't handled them very well sometimes. I've stuck it out, because I'm that kind of person where it's like, oh yeah, I'll just ignore. But I've learned now not to do that. I've sort of turned a blind eye to it before, and I've had feelings before with people where I'm just like, and it's not that like they're evil people, they're doing anything bad, but I'll just get such a strong feeling that I will literally have to be like, I got to be away from them in that moment.
Mm.
Um, like I just, my energy, I'm just like, something just is not right with this person for me. Like, this energy is not, I'm getting a vibe from something very deep inside that's telling me this person isn't right. And it, depending on the situation, like, whatever, if I'm away with them or something, like, I'll stick it out because it's just to get on with it and just to try to, and then I normally put myself in a position where I'm like, I've forgotten those things and just accepted whatever. But that's, and I think we all do that to some degree. But I don't think that's like, everyone has flaws, and that's completely fine. But it's when you get that real deep, strong sense that this person just is not good for me. Not that they're not a good person, they're just not good for me. And I think that's when, I'm learning. I've learned, and I think we're always learning. But I would like to believe that if that happens again next time, that I, once again will part ways very quickly. And I think it deserves a conversation, but I think it's, you got to stay true to that, because that when you get a feeling that strong, I think you should listen to it.
Is there any advice that you would give to your former Daniel 8 year ago self, as far as like how you would approach it? Or do you think you would approach it kind of how you just defined it, as far as like recognize it, then just walk away, or have that conversation as quickly as possible? Like,
I got to be honest, I've thought about that. I probably wouldn't say anything to him because he needed to learn.
oh,
So I probably wouldn't give him any. I wouldn't give him any advice at the moment, because he needed to learn everything he needed to learn to get to this point. So, and I think that's where we need to as well. That makes us not regret. We did what we did because we had to get to this point now where we've learned. So I think he did everything right and he did everything wrong, but it all added up to where we are.
I imagine,
and we're good.
I imagine that you're going to be the type of father that pushes your son in the deep end, not the shallow end. And you're like, learn how to swim, like figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I think I think there's definitely an element of that to me. I think that comes from my dad as well. My dad was very much, you got to get going, and you got to do things, and you got to be tough. And it was hard sometimes because he expected the best out of us when we did it. Like, I remember I used to play football, and I would get, like, literally, this is Australian rules football. It's called AFL. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a massive stadium with just a ton of players running around. It looks ridiculous when you get there. They look like little ants when you're looking at it from the stadium. And it's a rough game. And I just get piled over by some guy and be winded so much that I couldn't even breathe. And my dad would be like, get up, and it would work. I would get up and I would run it off and I would continue. And my dad would always have a saying you got to get back on the horse. He used to love riding horses when he was young. And he used to always say, there was one of an analogy of his, always get back on the horse. Always get back on.
So I feel like I need to give you a little bit of background about me. First off, I love football.
Yeah.
Football is amazing. And I guess American soccer, football for everybody else in the world. I also am not American, even though I've been living in America for a really long time. So
okay.
I am actually Scottish based. So
okay.
It gives you a little bit more background, because you're like, you're American. And I'm like, well.
I thought you were American. Sorry, I assumed. You have an American accent and you live in America. So my assumption was there.
So I've had a lot of vocal training, actually, whenever I go on any type of television. I grew up in the modeling and entertainment industry. So if you get me mad or extremely passionate about something, like taking me
Scottish,
to
you turn Scottish.
Football game, we'll definitely hear a different type of air. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Cool. I'll keep that in mind.
Getting me mad, kind of like our technological difficulties earlier. I was getting there. You were a couple of syllables away.
Yeah.
So tell me, I want to talk now about more like the breakups, which is where the rest of the world, whether you consider yourself a coach or not, kind of looks towards you with this book. And they've read it. I've read some excerpts. I've been waiting for you to come down to Miami or up to Miami. That way I can just get my signed copy.
Yeah, that's it, huh?
That's what I'm waiting for, is my signed copy. I won't take anything less than seeing you with a signed copy. That's my standard.
All right. Okay.
So,
all right. We'll organize it. We'll organize something.
I've got high standards. So
yeah, we'll have to organize it.
With you know, being someone that they look up to with breakups and with values and spirituality, most of your audience, I'm going to say, is primarily women. Like, would you agree with that?
Mm.
Or
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you?
I think the statistics on my Instagram are like 78% females.
Well, I would also say that probably has to do with like you looking in the mirror, but just the readers, I would say like the topic itself. I found that when I talk to men, especially about relationships, and I've had a relationship coach on the podcast before. I also don't know if you know who Andres Perez Molini or Alexander Cormont is, but they're pretty famous
No.
coaches in like France. Like Alex Cormont's like the number one
Okay.
in France, and then Andres is
Okay.
pretty well known here. And what everyone, when we talk about relationships or we talk about breakups or we talk about self love and being single, is they kind of relate it to where like women focus on it more and then early on versus men tend to catch up to being like, okay, maybe we should like investigate a little bit of our self love and maybe some trauma, maybe some flaws at like 30. Would you agree with that? Or do you think I'm just like,
Um, I don't know. I've just like I just don't put an age on things. I've really delved into my emotions and my mind when I was 23. I started to become awakened. So I think it depends on what kind of person you are. If that's their expert analysis and that's their experience, and that's fine. I mean, for me personally, I just wouldn't put an age on it. I think guys generally probably do, especially if they've been in relationships and then broken up again. Guys can go for a long time without being in a relationship and not actively seek it.
hmm,
They just keep getting on with things, and they're very focused on their career. And I think that's just how a man's built. It's like we need to just achieve and create and provide almost. And maybe it just means that they feel like they need to provide more and get more before they actually get into another relationship or whatever it may be. So I think we are built differently in so many ways, but I wouldn't say that it doesn't mean that it doesn't cross our mind. And there's times in our life, even throughout these moments, that we really want a relationship or we do look into this, self-love space or whatever it may be. I think we probably don't externalize it maybe as much, but men definitely have conversations with their guy mates all the time about higher perspectives and thought. And I mean, I've been having these conversations all through my 20s. So yeah, and I think that the world's evolving faster too. So guys are becoming a lot more accustomed to it, and they're wanting to look into it a lot more. So yeah,
how do you take some of
I mean, I
those?
have I have kids. I have kids that are like 16, 17, 18 guys that are like reaching out to me and saying, "Oh my god, your books touched me so much." Like, who says you can't? You do as well, which is a self-help book. And I'm just like, shit. If I was 16 years old reading that, I wish someone gave me a book like that when I was 16. That's like I didn't even know about any of that stuff. So it's I think the world's changing.
How would you incorporate those values into going through just hardships in general? So let's take away the breakup because I do like, the other idea of like this kind of self-awareness book that you have too, right? Equally as important
Mm,
is before you get into a relationship of any sort, I always tell people have a relationship with you, your beliefs, and your values, right?
yeah.
And until that is firmly established, then you really shouldn't be messing with anybody, right? Because you're just going to cause some damage or some hurt, or you guys are going to be fobbling through this relationship. And so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
with that, like, how do you keep your values and how do you keep that awakened spirit when you're going through hard times? Like, when you're being,
Well, I think. Mm, well, I think if it's is it in relation to relationships? You're asking, like you said before, if you're going through something and you're not healed yet, and then you get into a relationship. So are you wanting to know on that point?
it's kind of like a two in one question because
All right,
earlier
all right.
you were discussing, the identity with yourself, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like how that kind of will conflict. And then now, yes, you
Well, I
do have a
think.
relationship with
Mm,
others. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that. So I think in a relationship, it's one thing that, if you've been through something that, yeah, you do need to heal and you do need to get through it to pursue a relationship with someone else because you don't want to hurt them. You need to be, but I don't think we're ever fully healed. I think we're always learning about ourselves, and I think we're always got something that's going to come up. So I think it's more when you're getting into a relationship, it's more understanding what a relationship is. I think that's where people are getting really confused because I feel like we are so independent, and people want to live their own life and no one wants to live in someone else's shadow, and no one, wants to feel like they're being told what to do. And some people misinterpret those things as well when people are and that could be from their past. But I think we need to understand what a relationship is, and that it does have certain values and it does have certain commitments. And unless you're willing to adhere to those, then this word relationship and this concept or whatever it is or whatever it means to you needs to be understood before you actually commit to it. I think that's a major problem. People don't really understand what it means to be in a relationship before they get into one. They just get into one because they like someone at the start. They're like, oh yeah, I like them. And then what? And then it takes a hell of a lot of work because a relationship is a particular thing, and people need to understand that. When it comes to keeping your values when you're going through hard times, I think your values should never be ignored even if you're going through a hard time. So I think that the things that are most important to you should always be put on a pedestal to some degree, especially if they're things that are really, really important. So, yeah.
So this is going to be my last question, and it might be the hardest
Okay.
question of all.
All
So,
right.
when it comes to picking between your values and who you consider to be like the love of your life, maybe even someone you're already married to, where do you like put your hat?
Well, I think if you're married to someone, it's a very different story. I think if you're married to someone, you need to have a conversation with them and really let them know whatever this value is that you feel is being trampled on or not taken into consideration, or something that doesn't resonate with you. And if you have that conversation and it's constantly ignored or whatever it is, and I think you just need to make sure that value of yours that's now become an issue, because obviously you've been married with this person and now it's become an issue, that it's not something that's just a phase that you're going to get over. I think you got to really delve into it and say, is this something that I'm just going through, that I really just need space and time to go and think of how really important this actually is in my life? Like I've spoken to women who have left their partners because they've just wanted to travel and they feel like they've never and they've had this desire and they feel like they're falling out of love with it. They just want to go and explore the world and whatever. And I can tell you now, like 5 years down the track, they've traveled and stuff and they've lived, but they're not fulfilled. And they're constantly searching for something that maybe once they already had. Like they're dating and kicking themselves that someone's not replying them back, and why aren't people liking me? And it's like you're searching for something that you potentially already had. And it's not to say that if you weren't fulfilled in that relationship, it's like, oh, but it's like, are you working enough on it? Is this just a phase? So I think that's that's a main thing. I think just working out whether this is it a really strong value of yours that you've always had in your life, or is it something new that's come up that you should probably explore a little bit more before you make a massive decision like leaving somebody.
Definitely. Well, it's definitely been amazing to have you, despite all of the technical difficulties, the teamwork that we had to put together for that. Um,
Yeah,
how would
we got
somebody,
there.
thank you. How would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to work with you, collaborate with you, or find your books? Where would they find them?
Yeah, I'm not really doing one-on-one stuff at the moment. Potentially for a few clients, but it's just not something I'm doing at the moment. But I'm planning on doing events and online stuff as well. So just mainly through my Instagram, Daniel Chidiac.
Okay.
That's probably the best place. Yeah, hit me up, or if media, whatever, they'll find my email on the website. But yeah.
And then your books are on Amazon. Are they in
Amazon.
any
Yeah.
box stores as well, or are they pure on Amazon?
Yeah. No, they are. Yeah, they're in some stores as well. I mean, but if you can't find it in stores, just Amazon's probably the best place. It might even be the cheapest. Yeah.
Interviewing Daniel was very interesting because not only were we interviewing from different countries about spirituality when you're single, when you're in a relationship, and also when you're breaking up, but we also had extremely different views when it came to spirituality and our mindsets with relationships, which makes us human. This whole entire podcast is not about just succumbing to one way of thinking. It's about exploring spirituality and growth mindset, values, in all different types of ways. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful to kind of peek into Daniel's mind and see how he views things differently, but also find that some of our core values were the same. So, thank you guys so much, as always, for opening up that third eye, but also growing and healing with me today.